آمين وبعد. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم صدق الله العظيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. يا رب صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك على رسولك خير الخلق كلهم. Respected lovers of Allah, respected lovers of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ahbab seeking and aspiring for the pleasure of Allah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The heart's inclination for this Jummah would be to focus our attention on the recent happenings in Syria. The challenge with discussing that is that there's a great deal of speculation and a great deal of ambiguity. So instead of delving into it this week, we allow for a few weeks to go by, allow for the ambiguity to settle and let clarity prevail before we can make any decisive comments on what is transpiring in Syria. On the one hand, it's considered to be a great success. The oppressive butcher, Bashar al-Assad, has fallen. And the fact that that regime has fallen is considered to be a massive success. But then on the other hand, as the Bashar government had fallen, immediately there is celebration from the Israelis. Now we don't want to get caught up in conspiracy theories and speculate, but we rather just wait. It's a trait of the intelligent people, a trait of the Sahaba and a trait of the scholars to be very comfortable in the space saying we don't know. Let's allow for things to work out. Let's allow for the ambiguity to settle, and then inshallah we will gain good direction, and then inshallah we will gain some better insight on the situation. For now, concurrently in South Africa, we have now entered into the holiday period. The fact that we're in the holiday period, some would be traveling and others would be remaining at home, but to some degree, with the exception of those who are in retail business and those on imamate duty, the two most demanding tasks, everybody else will be winding down. So now that we're winding down, we need to look at this and ask ourselves, what is the guidance of Islam in terms of holidays and recreation and sports? And in that space, what does Islam teach us? We know that the purpose of our existence, as Allah Jalla Jalalu taught us, the purpose of our existence is servitude to Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Man and jinn have not been created except to worship Allah, which is symbolic of our servitude to Allah Jalla Jalalu. But that servitude is not a set of rituals which is confined to the masjid. Rather, a believer is consistently in the state of servitude. And the very interesting thing about human wiring is that a human is consistently in the state of some sort of servitude. So either you're going to be in the servitude of Allah, and if you're not in the servitude of Allah, you will end up in the servitude of something besides Allah. So a person would be in servitude of a culture, or a person would be in the servitude of money, or a person would be in the servitude of an obsession seeking fame, or a person will be in some sort of a servitude. So the most honorable, or the only honorable servitude is the servitude to Allah. But if a person is not in the servitude to Allah, he will find himself in servitudes to things which are other than Allah. But the nature of the way Allah created us, for as long as we're in this dunya, we are servants, and you can't switch off your servitude. Your allegiance may just change, but we remain in the state of servitude. So may Allah make us true servants. Now, us as servants who are seeking the pleasure of Allah, how do we engage in holidays and recreation while seeking the pleasure of Allah? So in the year 1999, in Makkah, there was a talk by a Sheikh by the name of Sheikh Muhammad bin Alawi al-Maliki, rahimahumullah. And he delivered a powerful talk, which was then transcribed as a booklet, translated into various different languages, and then distributed around the world. The title of the talk was very interesting. It was Silat al-Riyadati bid-Deen. The link between sports and Deen. And the effectiveness of sports in developing the Muslim youth. So in that book, he argues that if anything is done without seeking a higher purpose, without achieving the pleasure of Allah, then it's futile. And a believer does not engage in futility. Everything he does is objective. So when the believer is engaging in sports and recreation, the purpose cannot end at just fun. The purpose cannot just be the sport. Rather, through the sport, the recreation, the holiday, a higher objective has to be sought. Now the example is taken from Surah Yusuf. In Surah Yusuf, the sons of Yaqub alayhi salam came to Yaqub alayhi salam and they said, give us permission, we want to go into the fields and we want to take Yusuf with us, and they wanted to have a meal which is the equivalent of a picnic, and then they said, nastabiqu, we are going to take races. When we go into the wilderness, we are going to take races. Yaqub alayhi salam was hesitant to send Yusuf alayhi salam, but Yaqub alayhi salam expressed no hesitancy with the fact that they are going on a trip, with the fact that they are going on the equivalent of a holiday, which tells us that it is binding upon a prophet. If he hears something which is incorrect, that he needs to speak out. If he witnesses something that is incorrect, he needs to speak out. The fact that Yaqub alayhi salam did not oppose it speaks to the permissibility of a person engaging in recreation and taking holidays in Islam. So Sheikh Muhammad bin Alawi rahimahumullah, he says that you need to be seeking higher objectives in order to turn your sports and recreation into something that earns the pleasure of Allah, because again, a believer does not engage in futility. Everything a believer does is objective, seeking something bigger than what just meets the eye. So the first objective he says that the sports and recreation should achieve, he says that when a person is involved in recreation in sports, it should serve the purpose of strengthening the body. So it should be for the purposes of physical wellness. Under the topic of physical wellness, he created two subcategories. He said physical wellness, because the responsibility of every man is to protect his dependents. In a South African context, when there's crime, we know the importance of a man being physically ready and able. So the first outcome he's saying from sports and recreation is that it should increase your physical wellness, and under that the subcategory is, it is the responsibility of men to be protecting his dependents. Allah speaks about the role and the function of men. And I've spoken on the topic of masculinity on this platform previously, so we won't get too deep into that discussion. But Allah says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. It is the responsibility of men to be the guardian of women. So one Sheikh, contemporary Sheikh in the States, who published a book on futuwa, chivalry and masculinity. Somebody asked him in a podcast, Sheikh, what was your motive for releasing this book? He said, my reason for releasing the book is, a sister from our masjid informed me that they had a burglary at home. So I asked the sister, what happened? She said, I was laying in bed with my husband, and we heard some disturbances downstairs. And my husband woke me up and said, babe, somebody might be in the house, go downstairs, go check if everything is alright. He says, that book inspired me that I need to write a book on the subject of masculinity. So it's the responsibility of a man to be able to protect his dependents. The second reason for physical wellness is that every believer should be combat ready. And our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that that man who does not have a desire of martyrdom, and he lives his life without the desire of martyrdom, when he passes away on one of the branches of hypocrisy. Now if you look at the life of Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got nubuwah at the age of 40. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam departed at the age of 63, which means a 23-year span. In that 23-year period, Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam actively participated in 30 expeditions. Of the 30, there were some where the enemy had fled. So, it resulted in 19 expeditions that were actual physical confrontations, and Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam engaged in 19 of those in a 23-year period. My point being, how physically ready was Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How agile was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How strong was Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So when a person is engaging in sports and recreation, the higher objective should be for physical wellness. Now in physical wellness, there is also extremes. Because our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, لا ضرر ولا ضرار في الإسلام. There is no harming yourself and there's no harming the next individual. So the extremes when it comes to physical wellness as a higher objective of sports and recreation is that we sometimes entertain ourselves with absolutely no movement. And any examples, can anybody think of that? Entertaining ourselves with absolutely no movement. Netflix and chill. Sitting and playing PlayStation for hours. Or one of the forms of entertainment that we don't realize we're doing it for the sake of entertainment is just scrolling. Scrolling involves absolutely no movement. Now, that's a form of sports and or entertainment for that matter, or recreation that involves zero movement. So it doesn't meet the criteria of seeking a higher objective. The other extreme is pushing ourselves with such exertion that then cause damages to our body. The famous example, and if we can study and learn from combat sports, is Muhammad Ali had Parkinson's as a result of the blows that he took to his face. So at some point we need to find moderation. I'm saying we need to move away from being a couch potato, but on the other hand engaging with such extremes where in the masjid every second Musalli is performing salah on the chair because of his injuries. So we need to find the balance in a way where we're engaging in physical wellness, but not in a way where it results in no movement, and on the other extreme where a person is damaging his physical body because of overexertion or because of obsession. May Allah give us the understanding. Keep in mind when we speak about physical wellness, it needs to be where a person is truly strong instead of just appearing strong. And the example of that is Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, when a horse which would be galloping could gallop past Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu without putting on the bridle and the saddle, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu could mount a running horse as it was coming past. Now we have an obsession with appearance. It's all about the looks, all about the likes, getting the V-lines in order and then taking pictures. Just keep in mind that if a person is using steroids, you are not increasing your strength. So if you require large portions in order to sustain yourself, or you require a very, very, very specific, irrealistic diet, that is not strength. Because it is strength that won't serve you. You can't survive under adverse conditions because you've become so fragile. So it's not about appearing strong, it's about actually being strong. So the first higher objective of sports and recreation from the talk of Sheikh Muhammad bin Alawi al-Maliki, rahimahumullah, is for physical well-being. The second higher objective, he said that it should play a role of social cohesion and community building. So during the time of the Abbasids, they had noticed that the society wasn't functioning optimally, and the reason for that was there was a gap between the wealthy and those who didn't have wealth. As a result, there wasn't cohesion between the community. So the Abbasid Khilafah had implemented on a monthly basis, the community should come out and engage in sunnah physical activities for the purpose of creating social cohesion and creating unity between the community. So when they're playing sports, you can't see the disparity between the wealthy and those who don't have wealth, because the playing field becomes equal and everybody's playing together. Now something very important for us to keep in mind. The Western paradigm of competitiveness is toxic. The Western paradigm of competitiveness is that I win, and the opposite party, I need to see his downfall, and I win at any cost. That is not aligned to the Islamic paradigm of competitiveness. So how do you be competitive from an Islamic paradigm? Islamic competitiveness is love for your brother what you love for yourself. Be a well-wisher for the next individual. So my success is not dependent on your downfall. My success is measured in comparison to my previous performance. If my previous performance is my current performance is better than my previous performance, then no 2 days in the life of a believer are equal in virtue. As long as I'm progressing, that is sufficient. But if I require for the next individual's downfall, then my competitiveness has become toxic and it's not serving me. You know, I say to the youth when we go for programs, that it's just not worth it. If you've come to have fun, and the opposite party has come to have fun, he needs to meet you where you're at, you need to meet him where he's at. But if I'm so obsessed with winning, it comes at the compromise of fun. It comes at the compromise of relationships. And I say to the youth, you can't fight on the soccer field. You never know who has a pretty sister. So now you go propose a few years from now and you burn that bridge because of a penalty. Or you burn that bridge because you're fighting over a point. It's just not worth it. The purpose of sports and recreation, the higher objective is that it should create brotherhood and remove the divides between us. Then it is serving us. Then it is not toxic. May Allah give us the ability to manage our emotions in these heated moments. Say Ameen, brothers. So, that is the second objective. The third objective documented by Sheikh Muhammad bin Alawi al-Maliki rahimahumullah, he says that when a person is engaging in sports and recreation, it should teach him skills that are required in the real life. So it should serve as a training exercise to better him off the field. So he says there's certain skills that you can learn, and I'll give you one example. In Arabic, to wrestle is sarah. But to struggle in life is also sarah. So ulama say, what's the link between the two? If you've been on the mat and you're doing jiu-jitsu and you're doing grappling, you know how you need to become comfortable with uncomfortable situations. So somebody is mounting you, he's sitting on your belly. Somebody inside control got his chest on your chest. Somebody is trying to submit you, he's got you from the back, he's choking you. Now, if you don't become comfortable of those mats and you're going to go do karate, but the reason that you will now deal with those difficult situations will give you the grit to deal with real life difficult situations. So, when engaging in sports and recreation, it should be to build character. Somebody said to me that after doing the Otter Trail, now when I feel lazy to come for Salah, I tell myself, bro, you walk that garden route, you can't come for Salah. And he says that's what allows him to push himself to come for Salah. From a neuroscience perspective, they say there's a part in the brain. That muscle in the brain is meant to be exercised when a person makes achievements, when he achieves goals. If that muscle is not exercised, a person becomes very comfortable with complacency. So the more a person exercises that muscles, meaning the more achievements he gains, the more his ability to attract achievements becomes more possible because his ability to see beyond the limitations grows. So when engaging in sports and recreation, it's about learning skills that will assist you in the real life. When going on holiday, engaging in things that would push you beyond your limitations to assist you in real life. And that was the third higher objective you were saying from sports and recreation. The fourth higher objective. So let's just recap. The first one was? Is anybody listening? There's a whole lot of sports, recreation, bro. We're here for Jummah. What you talking, man? What was the first objective? Anybody? May Allah bless you, Anka. The first is for physical wellness. Under physical wellness, we had two subcategories. What were they? To defend our dependence. And the second? I can hear whispering. To be combat ready to serve in the path of Allah. The second high objective was social cohesion and building a community. The third higher objective was? You such a boss, man. Jazakallah, somebody's listening. To learn skills that will assist a person in real life. The fourth higher objective is that a person engages in sports, recreation and holidays for the purpose of rejuvenating the soul to prepare one for ibadah. So burnout is a real thing. Fatigue is a real thing. So sometimes just to disturb the routine with a healthy disruption that will rejuvenate the soul and prepare one for ibadah. A hadith by Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he narrated, where Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his preference after the masjid was to perform salah in the garden. Now under that, commentators mention there are two reasons. The one reason for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam enjoying salah in the garden is that it becomes very easy to contemplate over the greatness of Allah. The second is the ambience in the field, in the garden, is one that will rejuvenate the soul. So one particular Sahabi radiallahu anhu, he said that from time to time I engage in light-hearted activity. Because the outcome of engaging in certain light-hearted activity, and obviously in moderation, is that it rejuvenates my soul and it prepares me for ibadah. You see, there is a concept called zuhud. Zuhud is abstinence from this world, where a person divorces his inclinations from this world. The reality is, zuhud is a journey of accomplishment and lots of work. But sometimes when the scholars speak from the front about abstinence, not loving the dunya, not fulfilling your nafs, focused on the pleasure of Allah, the reality is you're speaking to an audience that is not at the point ready for zuhud. Bro, if all 5 salahs with jamaat is not in the masjid, you're not ready for zuhud. If you're getting caught up in interest deals, you're not ready for zuhud. But once a person has his basics in place, then he can escalate to the point where he now divorces the dunya and now lives a life of abstinence. But until that point, if a person does not fulfill his halal needs, consciously observe what I'm saying, especially the youth. If a person does not fulfill his halal needs, his nafs will rebel and push him towards haram. Let's look at the example. Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam speaking to the young Sahaba and tells them about the virtues of a man sleeping with his wife. So Sahaba radiallahu anhum say, Nabi of Allah, what's the great reward for a man sleeping with his wife? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells the Sahaba, that had you not been doing it through the halal avenue, there is potential that you could have been doing it through the haram avenue. So by creating substitutes that would save one from haram. So, some say if you can drink water, why drink tap water? Drink ice water. I don't know if you can call it the quetza, but that's more on cold drink, right? But that feeling where it goes down and you can feel it go down, surely you, alhamdulillah, will be stronger than just drinking tap water. So engage in sports and recreation and light-hearted activity to give your nafs what it needs from a halal avenue. Because if you don't give it what it needs from a halal avenue, you will end up finding yourself when your nafs is rebelling and pushing you into haram avenues. It's very, very important for us to keep in mind. You know, I got 1 minute remaining. I'll just share with you guys a very light-hearted incident. There's no authenticity to it. Please don't ask me for dalil. There's no dalil, right? So they say, some people say, there's no dalil for it, please. Some people say when a man spends the night with his wife, then he gets the reward of killing 1 kafir in jihad. So this couple got married, they were newly married, they were excited, they were hot-blooded. So they used to tell one another, let's go kill a kafir. Every time, let's go kill a kafir. But this guy's wife happened to be more hot-blooded than the brother. So every time she's seen him, after Fajr, let's go kill kafir. After Zohr, let's go kill kafir. After Asr, let's go kill kafir. And he's off in December. She just wants to kill kafir every time she sees him. The bro is having difficulty keeping up here, man. Eventually, at some point, he had to run away from her. So where do we run away? We run away to the masjid, to sit in one corner in the masjid. His wife that day, I don't know what was her kajur intake. She really wanted to kill kafir that day. So she went searching. Eventually she came to the masjid. She found him. Said, hey, come let's go kill kafir. He says, no, the mujahid has become shaheed. May Allah give us the understanding and give us the ability to seek recreation and fun only through halal avenues. Let me repeat and just sum up. Our discussion today was the importance of remaining a servant of Allah and seeking the pleasure of Allah in everything that we do. We said the recreation, the sports, the holiday should not be void of seeking the pleasure of Allah. And for that reason, the talk by Sheikh Muhammad bin Alawi al-Maliki rahimahumullah said, every engagement of sports and recreation should be seeking 4 higher objectives. The first is for physical well-being. The second is for social cohesion. The third is for learning skills that would assist us in real life. And then the fourth was to rejuvenate the soul, to prepare us for ibadat. May Allah give us the understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.